Imagine two investors. The first one is blessed. Every single year, like clockwork, she manages to invest her money on the exact day the market hits its lowest point. The perfect bottom. Every time. The second one is cursed. Every year, he somehow invests on the worst possible day, the exact peak right before the market tumbles. One has flawless timing, the other has the worst luck imaginable. Now, here's the question. After 30 years, how far apart do you think the results are? Most people picture a canyon between them. The lucky one rich, the unlucky one wiped out. But the real answer is so strange, so counterintuitive, that once you see it, you'll stop worrying about timing the market ever again. Here's what almost everyone gets wrong. We assume that timing is the thing that separates winners from losers in investing. Get in at the right moment and you win. Get in at the wrong moment and you lose. That feels obvious. That's not what actually happens. When you look at the numbers over decades, the gap between the luckiest timer and the unluckiest timer is surprisingly small. And there's a third investor hiding in this story, one who never tries to time anything at all, who quietly ends up beating almost everyone. So the real lesson isn't about being lucky or unlucky, it's about something far more boring and far more powerful. Welcome to Compound Capital Blueprint, where we explain investing concepts in a simple way. But first of all, a quick disclaimer. This is not financial advice. We're not here to tell you what to buy or sell. We're here to help you understand how this actually works so you can decide for yourself with a clear head. So let's start with what timing the market even means. Timing the market is the attempt to buy right before prices go up and sell right before they go down. In theory, it's the ultimate strategy. If you could do it perfectly, you'd capture every gain and dodge every loss. The problem is that nobody can see the future. The bottom of a market only looks like the bottom in hindsight. In the moment, the bottom feels like the beginning of the end of the world. When prices are crashing, every headline screams that it's going to get worse. That's exactly why almost nobody actually buys at the bottom. Because buying at the bottom means buying when it feels most terrifying. Think of it like trying to catch a falling knife in a dark room. You can't see where it is, you only feel the panic, and reaching out feels insane. That's what timing the bottom really feels like in real life. And here's the flip side. Timing the top is just as impossible. When prices are climbing and everyone around you is making money, selling feels insane too. Because what if it keeps going up? So you're stuck in a game where both moves, buying the bottom and selling the top, require you to act at the exact moment your emotions are screaming at you to do the opposite. That's not a strategy. That's a coin flip dressed up as skill. Now let's meet our three investors properly. We'll give them names so they're easy to remember. The first is Lucky Lucy. Every year for 30 years, Lucy invests her savings on the single best day, the market's lowest point. She has magical, impossible timing. The second is Unlucky Ugo. Every year, Ugo invests his savings on the single worst day, the market's highest point, right before a drop. He has the worst timing a human could possibly have. And the third is Steady Sam. Sam doesn't try to time anything. He doesn't wait. He doesn't guess. He doesn't watch the news. On the first day of every year, he just invests his money and moves on with his life. Now, common sense says Lucy should crush both of them, and Ugo should end up broke. But here's the part almost nobody mentions. Over those 30 years, all three of them end up remarkably close together. Lucy, with perfect timing, comes out ahead, but only by a modest margin. Ugo, with the worst timing in history, still ends up with far, far more money than he started with. And Steady Sam, who never tried to time anything, lands comfortably near the top ahead of almost everyone who sat on the sidelines waiting for the perfect moment.
Let's put real numbers on this because the numbers are where it actually hits home. Say each of them invests $900 a month, $10,800 a year, for 20 years. That's $216,000 out of their own pocket total for all three of them. Same amount in, same 20 years. The only difference is the day they hit the buy button. Lucy, with her impossible perfect timing, ends up with $1,004,816. She crosses $1 million. Ugo, with the worst timing a human could have, buying at the exact top every single year, ends up with $817,252. The gap between the luckiest possible investor and the unluckiest possible investor over 20 full years is under $200,000, and both of them are millionaires or close to it. Now here's Steady Sam, who did nothing clever at all. He just invested on the first day of the year, every year, and never once tried to guess the bottom or the top. He ends up with $920,997, closer to Lucy than Ugo is, without ever needing Lucy's impossible luck. And Hesitant Hana, who kept her $216,000 sitting safely in cash the whole time, waiting for a better moment that never came? She ends up with $255,728, less than what Ugo made just by being wrong every single year. How is that possible? Because all three of them had one thing in common that mattered more than timing: they stayed invested. Their money had decades to grow, and that growth, the compounding over time, dwarfed the difference that timing ever made. Let me put it another way. Imagine two farmers. One plants his seeds on the sunniest, most perfect day of the season. The other plants on a gloomy, drizzly day that feels all wrong. If you check back in a week, the first farmer looks smarter. But if you check back in 10 years, both have full-grown trees, and the one perfect planting day barely matters anymore. What mattered was that they planted it all, and then gave the trees years to grow. Investing works the same way. The soil is time, not timing. Now there's a fourth character worth mentioning, and she's the most common one of all. Call her Hesitant Hana. Hana keeps meaning to start. She's waiting for a dip, or for the news to calm down, or for a raise, or for just a bit more certainty. Years pass, and because she never actually planted anything, she has nothing growing at all. Hana isn't unlucky like Ugo. She's something worse. She's absent. And in the long run, being absent costs more than the worst timing ever could. This isn't just a cute thought experiment. Charles Schwab actually ran this exact comparison using real S&P 500 data, tracking 5 investors with identical annual contributions over 20 real years. The finding is remarkably consistent with what we just saw with Lucy, Ugo, and Sam. The difference between perfect timing and terrible timing over long stretches is much smaller than people expect. And crucially, both the perfect timer and the terrible timer end up dramatically ahead of the person who stayed in cash, waiting for certainty that never came. That's not a thought experiment, that's Wall Street's own homework, and it says the same thing our story just told you. Here's the kicker. The single biggest factor separating winners from losers in these studies usually isn't when you invested. It's whether you invested at all and whether you stayed invested. The people who did worst weren't the ones with bad timing. They were the ones who never got in or who panicked and pulled out along the way. So what's the real takeaway from all of this? Time in the market beats timing the market, not by a little, by a lot. The clock does the heavy lifting that timing could never do, and there's a deeper reason for this worth understanding. A huge portion of the market's total gains over any long period tends to come from a small handful of very good days. The catch is that those best days are almost always clustered right in the middle of the scariest periods, the exact moments when a market timer is most likely to have sold and stepped aside. Miss just a few of those days by being out of the market, and your long-term result can shrink dramatically. Steady Sam captures those days without even trying, simply because he never left. The timer, trying to be clever, is the one most likely to miss them. Now let's talk about why we're so obsessed with timing in the first place, because this is really the heart of it. Timing feels like control. When the world feels uncertain, the idea that you could outsmart the market, that you could find the perfect entry point, gives you a comforting sense of power. It makes you feel clever. It makes you feel safe. But that feeling is a trap. Our brains are wired to see patterns and to believe we can predict what comes next, even when we can't. It's the same instinct that makes a gambler feel a hot streak coming, and because missing out, buying at the top like Ugo, feels so painful we freeze. We wait. We tell ourselves we're being smart and cautious. But waiting isn't caution. Waiting is just a different bet, a bet that tomorrow will be clearer than today. It almost never is. The irony is brutal. In trying to avoid being unlucky Ugo, most people end up worse than Ugo because at least Ugo was in the market. The person waiting on the sidelines never even gave their money a chance to grow. So let's pull all of this together. Perfect timing barely beats terrible timing, and terrible timing crushes no timing at all. The lesson isn't try to be Lucy. Nobody can reliably be Lucy. Her perfect timing is a fantasy. The lesson is be Sam. Be the person who simply shows up, invests, and lets time do the work. That feels completely backwards from how investing is usually talked about. We're told the secret is finding the right moment. But the data says the right moment is almost always just now and then again next month, and again the month after that. So what do you actually do with this? First, stop waiting for the perfect entry point. If you have money to invest and a long time horizon, the evidence says getting started matters more than getting the timing right. Second, automate it. Set up your investing to happen on a schedule, the same amount, on the same day every month, so you never have to make the emotional decision of, is now a good time? Remember, Sam didn't need Lucy's luck to end up near $1 million. He just needed 20 years and a schedule he never broke. You become steady Sam by default. Third, when the market drops and it feels terrifying to keep investing, remember Ugo. Even the worst timer in history came out far ahead, simply because he stayed in. A scary market is not a reason to stop. Historically, it's often been one of the better times to keep going. None of this guarantees any particular result, and every person's situation is different. But the principle is clear. The goal isn't to be perfectly timed, it's to be consistently invested.
So the next time you catch yourself waiting for the perfect moment, remember Lucy, Ugo, and Sam. Perfect timing is a fantasy. Terrible timing still wins over decades. And simply staying in the game beats standing on the sidelines almost every time. If you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments. Are you more of a Lucy, an Ugo, or a Sam? And which one do you want to become? I'd love to hear. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.